This is the Monogram demo, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to our Illustrator, and we are going to open it up. When we open it up, I'd like for us to hit our Command-Option, Control-Shift if we're on a Mac, or Control-Alt-Shift if you're on a PC, and hold them down as you open Illustrator, and keep holding them down so that we can reset our preferences. Once Illustrator is open, let's go to New File. Once we go to New File, let's hit Print. And we're going to set it up in inches, and our document should be 6 by 6 inches. And we're going to set it up at 3 artboards. And leave all of our color settings the same. And we're going to hit Create. And once we have our documents up here, I'd like for us to do one thing first, is go to our window up at the top here, and we are going to go to our workspace, and we're going to set it up as typography. Once we have our workspace set up as typography, I'd like for us to make the rest of our document finished corresponding to our project. So we want these 2 artboards right here to be 3 by 3 inches. So I'd like for us to go to our artboards off to the right side, go to artboard 2, and what we're going to do is we are going to change with our artboard tool. We're going to change it to 3 by 3 inches. The width will be 3, and the height will be 3. And let's go to move this up. And we're going to do the same thing to artboard 3. We're going to change it to 3 by 3 inches. And let's move that one up here as well. And we can use our smart guides to basically align these. It won't affect our final PDF though. All right. Once we're here, what I'd like for us to do is go to our artboard 1, and we can click off of it by using our arrow tool. And once we're in here, I'd like for us to zoom in. You can hit Command 0 to get us into our first canvas. What we're going to do here is do our monogram experiments. We're going to use the letters of our first and last name to experiment with Gill Sans Nova and Adobe Garamond. Gill Sans is our sans serif, and Adobe Garamond is our serif font. So what we're going to do is we're going to experiment with the geometry and the interplay of these 2 letter forms. So the first thing that we're going to do before we go and start messing with our letters, I'd like for us to go to Illustrator and go to our settings and go to Type. And notice it has Fill New Type Objects with Placeholder Text. We don't want to fill with placeholder text. We just want to do individual letters. So we're going to click off that box. We're going to hit OK. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our Type tool. You can hit T on your keyboard to get it as well. And we're going to do your initials. My initials are J and T. So we're going to hit J. And what we can do is we can use our selection tool and we can copy and paste it. Just a Command C, Command V, or Control C, Control V. And we can get a whole bunch of these out there. And we can see I have 3 here. And we want these to be 72 points. Now notice if I select all of them and I go to my type tool off to the right side, I can set them at 72 points. And that's kind of what we want to be working with here. Now, there's another easy way that we can duplicate these in copying and pasting is we can hit our Command and Option or Control and Option if you're on a PC, and you can just drag them out from one another. And that way I have a few to experiment with. Now I have to do my T's, and we'll do the same thing. I'll hit my T, and I will use my Command Option, and I will just drag out so that I can get these different T's. Now, I would say I want some lowercase versions of this, so I'm going to duplicate a couple more. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to Type at the top. Remember to select Type. You can just drag out a marquee around them. And that will allow you to select multiple things at one time. And then what we can do is we can go to object, or what we can do then is go to type, and then we can go to change case and go to lowercase. So I have my lowercase versions. Now, notice I'm in Myriad here. I want these to be in Gill Sans Nova. Is that correct? So what we do is we go up to here and we type in Gill Sans. And we can go to Nova, and I want it to be medium. Now, if you don't have this on your computer, you can go to Google and you can go to fonts.adobe.com and we can search for Gill Sans Nova here, and we can activate it right here. And you can do that for Adobe Garamond as well. You just type in Adobe Garamond. And you can see here's my Adobe Garamond family. And I've already added it, so this would be to remove it. And this is where you would activate your fonts. So let me go back to my Gill Sans here and let's start working on some experiments. One thing I like to do is to mess with the geometry or the interplay of the geometry. Now notice I have all of my snap and smart guides on there. I'm going to take those off because it's going to allow me to do have a lot more flexibility with how I arrange these. So I'm going to go to view and I'm going to take off my smart guides, and I'm going to go down even further and go to my snap to point, and I'm going to take that off. And that way I have different versions of my Gill Sans experiments. And maybe I'm going to have like a little crossover right here. And maybe I'll have one that's like staggered. And maybe I'll have one that's just like perfectly even, almost like a pi symbol. All right. And let's do a couple more with a lowercase. Maybe I'll interlock that kind of geometry right there. And maybe I will make these kind of link. And maybe I will make one kind of like an anchor. All right. So now that we have all of our Gill Sans experiments, do about 6 to 8. There's no perfect number, but I want you to do several so that you have the ability to kind of pick and choose. And the final doesn't have to be capital or lowercase, but it's up to you. All right. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to figure out what my Garamond will look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to hit Control-C, Control-V. You can do Command if you're on a Mac. Except now I'm going to do it in Adobe Garamond. And what I'm going to do is kind of readjust these. I'm not sure I like the interplay with the serif. Maybe on this one I will link the serif at the top. Maybe this one I will lower the T. I'm kind of liking this one. Maybe on this one I'm doing something more like this. All right. And just adjust them how you want them to be. Now you're more than welcome to turn type on its side if you want to. It's not as legible, but anyways, these are my Monogram experiments right here. So I have about 8 experiments here per sans serif and serif font. And what I'd like for us to do at the bottom is label this. And we're going to set the point size over here on the right side. And I'm going to do it in Adobe Garamond, and I'm going to do it at 9 points. And I'm going to say in all capitals, Monogram experiments. And I might want it to have a bracket on the side just to make it look fancy, like a label. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to make this italic. And I'm going to set it off to the side here. You're more than welcome to arrange text in a way that is a little bit more balanced out here so your document doesn't look really cramped. I'm going to leave that up to you. And what we're going to do at the very end is we're going to go to our last final documents. And I'm just going to use my favorite versions of my monogram. And my favorite versions are all in capitals. And I'm going to choose this Gill Sans Nova. And what we can do is we can just copy and paste it and put it into our document. And then I'm going to take my other favorite one in Garamond and put it in this last document. Now, notice that they're still at 72 points. I want them to be a little larger, maybe like 120 points so that they fill the document a little better. So I'm going to set them at 120. And they might get a little off when you change them. Just adjust them to how you liked them in the original. So I'm looking at my original and I'm noticing that that looks pretty good to me. And then I'm going to change this one to 120 points as well. And center it. And let me make sure it looks like my original. I'm thinking the T comes down a little bit. There we go. And that's looking pretty good to me. At the very end here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to label them. So when we're labeling them, just grab your type tool and we're going to type at the bottom. Again, I want this to be smaller text. I would probably make them about 6 points on these smaller documents. And we're going to say monogram in Gill Sans Nova. And you can just put this right at the bottom corner. And then I'm going to duplicate this just so it makes it easier for me. And I'm just going to change Gill Sans Nova to Adobe Garamond. And there we go. And I can use my arrow tool to just kind of move this around. And that's looking pretty good to me. We can kind of see our final experiments here. And this is what your final should look like. What I'd like for us to do at the end to save them, to submit them for your final, is we're going to go to File. We're going to Save As. And I'm going to save it onto my computer so then I can post it to Canvas. And we're going to save it as a PDF. And I'm going to title it JT Monogram. And I'm not going to save it to Creative Cloud. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And we are going to save. And I'm going to save my PDF. And we can kind of see what we saved to our desktop. We have our monogram experiments here. And if we scroll down here, you can see my monogram in Gill Sans Nova and my monogram in Adobe Garamond. All right. And this is the monogram project. It shouldn't take you too long, and good luck. Remember to post it to Canvas as a PDF.